So this will be the first part of a series of videos that I want to do about like a professional VFX workflow. Nobody really talks about this online and how to do it. You have to go read articles and really like do a deep dive into a bunch of stuff that really like ultimately hurts your brain at the end of the day. So here's a video breaking down from beginning to end. This will be the first part of how to get your VFX out of the edit suite through the VFX process and then back into the edit suite from beginning to end. This first part we're going to talk about doing the VFX pull, and that's what it's called. When you're done editing your movie, everything is assembled, you're going to pull those VFX shots to send those to the VFX house, and that might be you, that may be someone else, a third party, and this is how you do that. So let's say you've got your timeline set up. The easiest way to start setting up your VFX pull is to move all your VFX to a different layer, a different video layer here. So in layer 2, we've got our VFX shots that we've selected, different things going on, whatnot. And we've moved those up to the second layer to indicate that they're VFX. And then we can also, real quickly, if we wanted to, make them a different color. If we wanted to make them orange. Hey, that's VFX. Okay. Once you've done that, there's sort of two different approaches, and we'll go through one before the other. But we'll call this the big nasty approach. This is what like ILM does when they do huge blockbusters. If you're thinking like Star Wars, The Creator, things like that, this will sort of be the workflow that they do. And then later we'll explore kind of a more quick and dirty, sort of low budget form of how this works. So if you're really wanting to put in the legwork and do this like the big boy way, what you're going to do now at this point, this would be the job of the editor, probably an assistant editor, and sometimes even like a VFX editor. And that's their entire job, is just to edit back in, make VFX pulls, edit them back in. They are a VFX editor, so they bridge that gap. So we're going to look at it in Resolve, and that's what I've got. It's great. It's a free software, so it's a great place to get started. A lot of these same concepts worked in Premiere as well as Avid, I'm sure. So in Resolve, you got your VFX shot selected. You're going to right-click, go into Clip Attributes, and in the name, we're going to start naming this. So naming convention is usually 2 or 3 letters that describe your movie. So this video is called German Ambush, so it's going to be GA. Usually from there, if you're working on a feature film, it's going to have a reel number, and reels are just basically 15-minute chunks of the movie. So a movie can usually have anywhere from like 5 to 8 reels, depending on how long it is, and each of those reels is going to be 15 minutes long. But with a short film, that's a little bit less important. And then with like episodic TV too, that would probably more be like an episode number. So season 1, episode 2 would be like 102. And then back to feature film world, you're going to have reel 1. Or even just 01. And then from there, you're going to have a shot number. So we'll treat this like a feature film. So this is going to be German Ambush, Reel 1, Shot 010. Why we do that? This is the first shot, the first VFX shot of the whole movie. And you name them in groups or in tens. So the first shot is 10, the second shot is 20, the third shot is 30. And the reason you do that is because if we go back later and decide, oh, there's a shot between 1 and 2 that actually needs VFX that we missed earlier, or we changed our mind, then you would be able to go into that new shot and name it 15. And it fits right in the order that it's supposed to. It doesn't mess up any of your naming conventions. It just slides right in where it should go, and you carry on, as you would have. So first shot is 10, and so on and so forth. And we're just going to go through and name all of these according to the convention. And you do this shot by shot, and it sucks, but the benefit of this is now you are organized. 10, 20, 30, 40. And this will help sort of automate a lot of the processes going forward. Keeps everything nice and clean. You never get lost. You never lose any footage. You don't get confused. You also don't get bogged down in like a bunch of work that you have to do later because you front-loaded it and you did it at the beginning. So all of our shots are named now. We've got GA 01010, 20, 30, 40, and 50. And I messed up the real name. Okay, and we're back. I fixed all of the real names. So now everything is uniform. So your shots are separated, they are renamed, everything's nice and organized. What we can do now is we can just turn off that first layer so that we only have the second video layer visible where our VFX is located. Now let's talk about color management. So, going into the color side of this, VFX pull does involve color. A lot of times, the editor will make an EDL or something of all the VFX shots that need to be pulled, and then send that to the DI or the color house, whoever's doing that. Usually, like on the big movies, it's Company 3. I've worked with them before. The editor will send them a list. They will make the pull and then send that to VFX. But if you're a one-man band, you're doing this all by yourself, this is how that works. You're going to I've got these grouped because of the different cameras that are involved, but just long story short, what you're going to do is you've got to convert the camera footage into something usable. So again, we're talking about big, huge blockbuster VFX workflow. We're sort of moving into an era where ACES is that intermediate color space. And that's great because ACES just sort of makes everything uniform. They're saying that ACES will never change, so it's going to be the same color space for the next 100, 200 years, whatever going forward. Whereas and honestly, you've already seen it from the, red 1 to whatever variety of red camera we have now, that color space has changed with almost every model. And it will probably continue to change, as technology grows. So, you won't always have that same exact red color profile to come back to in the future. So it just sort of future-proofs your project. Anyway, moving on from color spaces. So we're doing the big workflow. We're going to convert our footage from the camera profile into our working profile, which is going to be ACES. So the input transform will always be your camera profile. In this case, it's the Blackmagic Design Film Gen 5. So for our output transform, we're going to say no output transform, and that will make it whatever our timeline color space is, which we will set to ACES. Boom, now we are in a regular flavor of ACES. It's linear. This is what you want to see. It's really dark, it's crunchy, it doesn't make any sense, but this is what you want when you're doing the big VFX workflow. Why this is important is because when you send this to the VFX house, if we've decided to do an ACES workflow, it's easy. The VFX house knows that every shot they get is going to be ACES, it's going to be linear, and there's no guesswork. They don't have to ask a million questions. They just know, boom, ACES, done. And so this linear gamma is only useful, though, with this particular workflow. Why? Because we're going to export this sucker as an EXR. Now, this is a format that was developed by ILM. The benefits of this is it spits out an image sequence that are super high quality. There's no quality loss. They can handle up to 32 bits color space, and everything is just like, it just maintains that quality from beginning to end, and it's awesome. But the downside is they take a lot of space. I mean, you're talking terabytes. If you're doing a feature film, that has a lot of VFX shots, it's going to be terabytes and terabytes of data that are being output and ingested. It's going to be crazy. So that's why that one fact alone is why this is considered the big nasty workflow, the big blockbuster workflow. You're going to do EXRs. RGB half is probably your best bet if you're going to do any kind of compression. Company 3 and the big boys, they usually use this PIZ or PIZ, is a lossless compression to put your footage in 4K resolution, or another thing. Oh yeah, okay, the big important setting I missed here is you want to click on individual clips. You want to render these out as their own individual files, and then depending on what you're doing, these Blackmagic clips could be in 6K, and we don't always want to do VFX in 6K, so if we want to just like standardize everything at 4K, we will export at 4K. In our advanced settings, we're going to do no data burn in. That means your like time code and things like that. We don't want that. And then your flat pass now needs to be off. There are some cases where you would want to enable flat pass, and that just means it's going to bypass your color corrections. But because we put this from the camera profile into ACES, we want to make sure that it still pays attention to that our color corrections that we did. So flat pass is off. And once we have all of that, if you wanted to, okay, good. It's EXR, it's got no audio. Okay, here's our naming conventions. So what we will do, you select your location where you want to export things to, and then in your file name, you're going to put in the %, and now you're going to say clip name, and that is going to export all of these files with the clip name that we gave it earlier, which is the movie title, the reel number, and the shot number, and it will do that automatically with each of your things. And then also you want to make sure place clips in separate folders. Boom. That way each clip goes in its own folder, and all your 10,000 frames or whatever are not all mixed together in one folder. So that's cool. Then you punch the render button, hit go, and it will spit out everything just like you need it to. So that's the big nasty workflow. If you're working on commercials or short films, or if you just don't have the kind of like logistic support to do huge EXR files, now let's talk about how to do that. So the process is going to be basically all the same. You're still going to separate your files, you're still going to name them if you have time for that. What's going to change is in your color. So we're going to move away from EXR files and go back to a video file, like a ProRes or MOV container. But the problem with that is that you cannot export linear gamma into a MOV file. It just can't read it, which is why all of your camera profiles and stuff have log. Log is a cheat. It's a way to convert a huge span of luminance values into something that Rec 709 can see. So linear does not work with MOV files. With this workflow, what we'll do is we'll actually just leave it in the camera color space. So we will do nothing basically and export this log to the VFX house. And if we do this across the board, then everything's in log. And we'll go back to our clip settings. We will just sort of reset everything here. Now, in our video settings, we'll go to a QuickTime. The codec now will be, you could do ProRes. I would do like ProRes. Quad 4 XQ is going to be your maximum sort of quality. If it's like a super low budget commercial and you're doing things quick and dirty, then the lowest sort of quality I would go with ProRes is 422 HQ. That's as low as I would go. Then you start throwing away data, and your video quality just gets less and less and less as you go. And then when you start to use that data to do your VFX, you get banding, you get all kinds of different artifacts, and it just gets nasty real quick. So the lowest, absolute rock bottom, is 422 HQ. Just out of the box, Resolve doesn't do ProRes, so we will do DNX HR, and I just do the 444 12-bit, and that keeps everything nice and big. With all the data that you need, it's got 12 bits. Most cameras record in 10-bit, so 12 bits should be plenty of information. Still doing 4K, still doing the no data burn-in. And then if we just want to be, straight, we don't want to do any kind of, color adjustments on this one. So we're going to turn that flat pass on this time. We want it to take the camera footage and export the camera profile with no changes. So flat pass, always on. Next thing you do, so now with our naming, you could do the clip name if you took the time to do that. Another thing you could do is, real quick, if we were to just open up a new timeline and move all these VFX shots to a new timeline. So now this is a VFX timeline. The only thing it has in it is VFX. And with that, what you can do is when you're doing your naming, you could say %sign and index, and click timeline index. And what that's going to do is export each clip, and the name of that clip is going to be where it is in the timeline, the index. And what that looks like is if we click this index window here, it's named 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, da, 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 da. But it's just going to name on it in order. And that's kind of a quick and dirty way if you get into a pinch. But obviously the nicer way to name your files is the custom name that we gave them earlier. So clip name. With that, all of your settings are ready to go. Again, add to that render queue. Render that sucker, and we will see you in the next video where we will talk about file organization and how to handle that.